No worries. Yep, no, I can hear you great. Thank you.
Okay, sometimes we run into the issue with Teams in here too. I think if they do some type of an update, we almost have to restart it because we just don't have any sound. It's the strangest thing.
Okay.
Hey, John, I'll just kick right now, so.
I'm good to go.
Call to order the May 1st, North Gateway Redevelopment Advisory Board meeting. Could be a roll call.
Jared Martin,
Here.
Deacon Lucas,
Here.
Nate Levin. On his way. Mike. No, sorry, Jared, I didn't, sorry.
It's going to be late.
Mike Alley, I was already moving on to the next
Yeah,
person.
it's fine.
Mike Alley,
Here.
I was. Scott Cantonwine,
Here.
Dana Castano,
Here.
and Kevin Loss.
Okay, put a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Agenda approved. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 6th? So moved. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Minutes approved. No public comment. First,
Thank you.
let the record show that Deacon Lucas is present. First thing, we're gonna talk about the Silverton Road project. Aaron's here. I'm just gonna give it to you.
Alright, yeah, thank you, Jared. So I do have this map, because you wanna stare at it on. Oh, sorry.
We have something we can share.
She's not.
Yeah.
So we're pulling up the exact same map that we're showing in the office. So our Zoom folks can see it as well.
I think it's also in your packet, but not probably very legible. Yeah. So the Silverton Road project, I think. We're joking away, it's been about a year since I've been here to talk about it. So the improvements on, excuse me, on Silverton Road, it's a combination of several projects, really. One big project. The first piece of work you're gonna start seeing is, franchise utility relocations and city crews will be out there doing some utility work. Some of that is actually starting and underway. The first contracted piece of work is on the screen there. There's that green line between Lana and Evergreen. That is a project that we did separately from the rest of the improvements you see here on the map. And that is a sanitary sewer rebuild. There's a large trunk main that goes through there that we're applying. It's gonna require a bypass and some pretty significant traffic control setup on Silverton Road. So that will be occurring this summer. The contractor's hoping to get in and do excavation required for all the laterals to the houses before the state fair and pretty much go away during the state fair period. And then they'll come back immediately after the state fair and set up to do the liner before the flows increase to the lanes. So that's the first work you're gonna see occurring, and then the rest of the improvements is a large project that actually is gonna advertise for bids tomorrow. And it includes the improvements at 17th, which is funded by this group. So that work, the contractor will essentially have this summer and next summer to complete. There's a very significant amount of work due to the restrictions due to the state fair, Grant County Fair, and all the other events that go on at the fairgrounds. It really limits the amount of time that they have to work out there. So that's gonna occur starting this year and go on through next summer to the end of 6. I guess a couple things to note beyond the intersection improvements at 17. If you can scroll on that to the right side. So you'll see some large black boxes on that, actually the eastern end. So those are two pieces of the work that we're not 100% sure whether or not we can afford all those improvements. Bid prices have kind of been all over the place here lately. So we're bidding that work on that end as separate added alternates to be able to try to get as much work as we can into the contract given the prices we received. The first piece will be the far bright box that you see on the screen, and that's repaving and restriping from Beacon to Fisher. If we have the available money, once bids are open, that'll be the first piece that we include. And then the second piece will be the box kind of in the middle. And what that is restriping of that segment. The pavement there is in good condition. That was repaved as part of the 2008 bond. And we would restripe that to be the new road diet cross section that we're doing to the west. So one of the things this project will do is change the lane configurations on Silverton Road from essentially from the railroad tracks. Well, to Williams for sure, and if we can afford it to. That makes sense. After that. And then from Beacon to Fisher, that won't with that because the curbs there are wide enough to have the 2 lanes in each direction, the center turn lane, lights, questions jumping out at anybody?
It makes sense to mention that we're gonna be able to do the extra crossing
Yes.
that we weren't planning on being able to do.
Yes, so
Yeah.
one of the things we're doing as part of the project is there was property acquisition needed from the fairgrounds for the work at Silverton Road. If you can just pull that back to the left. Thank you. So we're trying to make that intersection's got a weird skew and the southwest corner, there's a really tight angle. Trucks take out that existing signal pole in that corner on a pretty normal basis. So we're trying to improve that. The improvements will widen that radius and actually make this look like a cap out there, make that turning movement a lot better. So there was property needs from the fairgrounds for all those improvements. And as part of that, we negotiated a deal with the state. They really wanted to see a pedestrian crossing. Kind of see the little red blurb down there on 17th in front of the Jack and Lon building.
Yep.
They really wanted that ped crossing to help get folks from the parking lot on the west side to the fairgrounds. So we're doing an exchange. So for the property needs, we're going to construct those ped crossing improvements, and the state fairgrounds. So the state owns the ground, and there's also the state fairground, or they're putting in some additional money to try to do that.
Oh, cool.
So that will be a part of the project as well. So there's. Yeah, well, exactly. So there's 3 ped crossings going in with that one. So that's one of them. There's one in front of the Marion County Health Building. And then there's a ped crossing down at Sedona. And that ped crossing at Sedona is funded by state for us to support.
A lot of layering of funds, kind of, as we talked about earlier, it's the benefit of,
There's
even though it took us a little bit longer than we planned to start this project, the nice thing is we've been able to layer it with bond funds and then the safe route to school funds and some of those other ones, so we're getting a much bigger project for the area, not just our little portion that we were hoping to do.
I think there's 5, maybe 6 funding sources all rolled together for a total price tag of over 14.
Is the Light Atlanta changing at all? The configuration of it?
Simple answer is no, but we're basically rebuilding the whole signal.
Yeah.
So in order to get ADA to work, we had to do a lot of stuff. And 2 of the existing big signal poles have been hit by trucks. That's pretty significant structural damage to the poles. So actually what we're doing is we're replacing both of those with used poles that we've salvaged from other intersections. So it's gonna look like a whole new brand new signal, but it's gonna have some use.
I just know at the fair, that one gets really weird because so many cars, I didn't know if there was gonna be any kind of lane change as far as trying to move people past that.
Not really.
Okay.
It should function better because part of that will be replacing the protection system without being.
Oh, okay.
So they'll be able to walk through the timing to help them better getting the better events. But as for lane configuration, Silverton Road will be changing through there with the size groups. That's another one that Atlanta's got a really hard skew as well. We are increasing the radius of that west corner. So yeah, lots of work, lots of traffic impacts coming. We will be reducing the speed limit from 35 to 25 during the construction. Fortunately, slow everybody down, make it safer for all work.
There's not really a good detour over there, is there?
There's really not, people have been kind of dispersed during construction and find other routes.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Now,
I'd be able to see them.
Rolls away there.
In case there was more questions.
You guys got any questions?
I don't
No
have a
questions?
question.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, thank you for the update and the visuals are very good. So I appreciate the visual display here to help explain. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just have a comment about the crossing on 17th, right by the Jackman Long building. I am excited for that just because I was recently at the fairgrounds for an event and the crossing on 17th is such a mess. So I'm very appreciative that that's able to happen.
The next time we see Aaron, if it's not tied to this project, we'll also be working with him and his team as we start looking at the Portland Road improvements that are in the budget for what we can do, what the bond can do, what we can do to try and beef up that project. So we'll be starting to kind of have those conversations here in the near future, yeah. So just so you guys kind of know what's on the horizon.
Yeah, that one's is that 2027 though?
We started putting money in this next budget year because we'll need to start working on design and things like that, and then construction will be the next phase.
I think it'll wind up being similar to this. You'll probably see some of the work starting in 27, bulk of the work in 28 because of the size of them.
Yeah.
So you'll see more of Aaron. He can't get away from us.
But as this one unfolds, feel free to reach out. There's gonna be a lot of things happening, a lot of changes. So if there's any questions, there is a contact, Nikki Roth. And the PM is going to manage the construction. Her name is on the sheet here.
You can just reach out to me and I'll make sure I get updates from him and I'll check in with Nikki too as things are happening and try and bring some info back for you guys as well.
Yeah, and if you want me to come back in 6, 8, 12 months, because it is going to go on through 2026. So.
Oh. Well, at least it started.
Yes,
Excited.
There's a lot of French. I mean, PG has a lot of poles to move, so there's going to be a lot of that upfront work.
Yeah.
Placed. A lot of telecom hanging on the poles. So it's an extremely old corridor. All those systems are really old. So it's
Cool. Thanks, Aaron.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's fine. Don't forget your notes. The essentials of the day.
Okay, 2640 Portland Road.
Yeah, I don't have a long or a big update, but I did just want to touch base with everyone. So first and foremost, thank you all for taking my very unexciting survey. I know I stalked some of you a lot. And I'm sorry about that, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone's opinion got included in the final sort of result. I didn't want it to be dependent on just like 2 or 3 people, because that's not reflective of the board as a whole. So what I attached in your packet, you'll see kind of where everything sort of landed, which kind of really didn't surprise me because I felt like it kind of really was supposed to have a conversation fell with the board. So obviously that incorporation of the amenities, you know, and some of these things I think were kind of similar in a lot of ways. You know, obviously contributing to the tax base was really big. The job creation, industrial flex space. So our next step on this, just so that everybody knows, is we're kind of in the queue, I guess is the best way that I can say it. So I mentioned to everybody here that, you know, this isn't the only site that AURA currently owns that we're moving into development. We have block 50 across the street, and then we have block 45, which is just up the street. And so those 2 are still in the queue as well, with block 45 in the process of doing a final developer selection. And that needs to get finalized with the agency. Block 50 is finalizing some development items, and so those are kind of ahead of us in terms of getting those through council. As a lot of you know, we have a lot of new councilors, we have a new mayor, and a lot of their focus right now is obviously on budget, for a number of reasons. So we're kind of in the queue behind all of those things. So the thought right now is we think we'll probably be able to get this to them. We're hoping sort of in that late summer, early fall to make sure our priorities and their priorities are kind of in alignment. And then after that, we'll be able to start doing that disposition for a developer. So initially, I think when I talked to you, we were thinking more like late summer. I think we're probably more in the early fall, but it's just trying to manage the council's workload as well, because we are asking a lot of them right now. So that's kind of where this is. So I probably won't have an update for you, until we get closer to the fall, but I wanted you to know that we're moving on it. This is happening. We're getting in the queue. And as we're having sort of one-off meetings with different counselors, we are letting them know that this is going to be coming forward. We have this site, what is happening with it. So we are using those opportunities when we have meetings on other topics, just to keep them apprised of sort of the different things that are going to be coming their way. And if they have tidbits that we're receiving, kind of things they'd like to see, we're trying to make sure, we're taking that into consideration. So that's sort of where we are on this. It's kind of that go and wait, which I apologize for, but it's kind of how development works, right? Do you have any questions or thoughts, or do you want to discuss anything that's on there? These are your.
I'm just glad to see that things are moving forward.
Yeah. Any of you guys got any questions?
Not for me, thank you.
I'll keep you all apprised as things move on that one.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Board merger update?
Yeah.
I don't have a big one, but because I know you all took a motion, I wanted to make sure I came back to you. Next steps have changed a few different times. Dana was writing a staff report, then we weren't writing a staff report, then we were doing an update, now it's part of our larger thing. So now what is happening? So the board merger update recommendation came out of a performance audit tied to good governance back in the fall. Part of the whole Moss Adams, if you've been watching a lot of city council meetings, Moss Adams has been doing a series of performance audits of different programs here at the city. And one of them they called good governance, and so it was tied to what was happening at the city attorney's office and our boards and commissions. And some of the recommendations were merging the boards. Back in February, Kristen Rutherford came and kind of told everybody, hey, one of the recommendations is to merge all the urban renewal advisory boards. This board said, yeah, great idea, but we don't really want to do it. Let's take a motion against it. At that point, we weren't sure sort of how that messaging was going. We were thinking we were going to do a staff report to let sort of council agency know that none of the boards, they all thought it was a great idea, but nobody really wanted to do it. In the future, it's a great idea, but not right now for the boards that we have. And so what's happening is there's going to be a broader update that's provided to council that's tied to sort of all the recommendations of the good governance performance audit. And this is going to be one of those things that's in there. At this point in time, we as staff are not planning to move forward on merging any of the three boards together. We had a lot of good conversation, and I think both, especially, North Gateway and West Salem are very similar in the fact that both URAs are going to hit maximum indebtedness soon. And so does it really make sense to try and merge boards that are getting closer to the point where we're not going to be collecting more increment and try and bring all that back on versus keeping separate? And then as we are creating new urban renewals, looking more towards, the boards that will be around longer. So do we sort of modify what is currently the riverfront one over time as it makes sense versus trying to kind of take these three boards, merge everybody together, try and work through, it'll take us a year, 2 years to work through all the dynamics, and by then we won't even have increment coming in a couple of the areas. So no change as of now. Of course, we all know nothing's ever permanent, but for the time being, we appreciate everyone's very, thoughtful feedback. And unless we hear something different, we'll continue status quo. But of course, if for some reason we start hearing that there's interest in doing something, of course, we'll get back in front of you just like we did a couple months ago. So that's what I have on that one. anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
That's great. That's great news.
You're all still stuck together, that's kind of what it says at the end of the day.
Anything else?
For that one, no.
Any other updates?
Oh. I only have two small ones for everybody, and then obviously if anybody else has anything they wanna share with the group. So I think the only thing I wanna mention is we do have our next meeting scheduled for June. You all know how this rolls. We're gonna try not to have a June meeting unless someone comes in and needs an action item out of you, which means most likely our next meeting will be in August. With that being said, those of you who like to attend the meeting in person, in August, we will have paid parking in downtown. So if you park on the street, we will have converted to paid parking. However, you can still park in the parking structures for free. I'm happy to share more about that project if you would like to know, but really the purpose of today was I just wanted to make sure everyone knew. Come July the 10th, as of today, that is the date at least.
So you're not going to have the meeting credit card at the front desk?
I'm sorry.
Have to go upstairs.
We don't, I will tell you, in all honesty, we actually have 2 cards that the vendor provides us for like testing machines and things. And we were doing video shoots all day yesterday for how-to videos for how to use the machines, and those cards were actually not working. So we were having to use a personal credit card for all of our shots because those cards weren't work, they work on the existing machines, they just weren't working in the new machines that just arrived on Friday. So, you know, there is no such thing, because even the ones we have don't work. And now we have to send them back, so, you know, technology is fun.
I have a question.
Sorry, what
What
was
was
that?
that?
I just had a quick question about the parking. Is, like, right now I know there's parking that's free between certain hours. When the paid parking starts, is it paid all the time no matter what, or is there certain hours where it's still free?
So the hours of enforcement downtown will not be changing. And so the paid parking hours will tie to enforcement hours, which I believe are from 8 AM until 8 PM, Monday through Saturday. So they don't enforce on holidays, they don't enforce on Sundays, and so you would be required to pay. So it's just like if you're in the Capitol or anywhere else where we have paid parking, the hours of pay are programmed to the same hours of enforcement. So that's kind of the caveat. There is an app, as Jared was asking about. I don't have it available for people yet. It's still being developed. I'm hopeful that we'll be getting it in a couple of weeks. And then we will be launching sort of, what we did is we did sort of a push around the holidays if you were downtown. We did a survey of people who came down here just so we could understand, where do people like to park? What do they like to do when they're downtown? What other things would they like to see downtown? And so that was kind of our first kind of foray into like, hey, we want to understand, have you used a pay station before? Have you used an app before, to know who the audience is? In, I want to say mid-March, we did a push really focused on residents and businesses to let them know that paid parking was coming. So we pushed out about 1,900 postcards to every physical address of every business, property owner, resident, to let them know that, hey, this is coming. We built a project website, so it's got FAQs, it's got kind of just a whole variety of different types of information depending on what you're looking for. It's got maps, it's got the postcard itself that people can print out. But the idea there being like, if you're a resident or you're a business and you have employees, we want to let you know this is coming, because however you're currently parking may not work if we go to paid on-street parking. So you may not want to pay anymore if you're a resident, you've been parking on the street. We want to make sure that, you know, you've got months to kind of look at the different options, see what the different costs are, and not feel as though, oh my gosh, this is happening in 3 weeks, where am I supposed to go? And the same for employees. Realistically, all employees should already have a parking permit. We know that's not the case. But once again, it's just giving people sort of that time to know exactly kind of, this is happening, what are my options? What'll start happening at the beginning of June, and especially if you come downtown, that's when we're really doing the big push for the customers. So that's when we're gonna start putting a lot of different information out. You'll start to see QR codes, and the QR code is where you're gonna be able to download the app. So the app is called Beep Beep Salem, and it will allow you to pay from your phone, you can pay from a machine, you can use credit card, you can use coin, so there's a lot of different options. But I think, you know, the things to remember is one, the parking structures will continue to be free for visitors and customers. And two, we're not creating zones. So sometimes, for instance, if you're in Portland and you're in the Pearl District and you pay for parking and then you're like, oh, I really wanna go up to Northwest, I need to do something, and I still have an hour left, my parking doesn't overlap. We're not doing that. We're trying to make it as easy and flexible for people because it's a big change. It's a change for customers, it's a change for businesses, and it's a change for our parking staff too. And so the idea being, if you're in the Capitol and you have a meeting and you're like, you know, I'd really love to run downtown and grab a cup of coffee or pop into a shop or have some lunch and I still have an hour left, your time is gonna carry over. Just like if you're downtown and you need to run, it's going to carry over. The only exceptions are the airport, which you pay by the day, so it kind of makes sense that it would, and at the library, but we don't charge at the library unless you're there for longer than 3 hours. So that doesn't tend to be an issue too often. But the idea is to make it as easy and as flexible. So once you start coming down in June, I think you'll start to see a lot of materials. We've got, you know, everything from rack cards going out to coasters to handkerchiefs that people can put on their dogs. We're gonna have large sort of cutouts of our logo that we're gonna be putting hopefully in vacant storefronts and out at the airport that people can download the app from. Like I mentioned, we were shooting videos all day yesterday. We're gonna have a series of how-to videos for people who maybe they're not really comfortable with this change, that'll help them see how to use the machine, how to use the app. We're also putting together an announcement video, so our partners at the convention center or the chamber or hotels or Travel Salem can plug that on their site, so when people are coming down to Salem, it's a really easy way to say, hey, parking's changed. And the app will be good for all of our parking, it's not just downtown, so we're kind of changing a lot of things. The other thing I'll mention is if you do currently park in the Capitol or any of other big areas, that will move from the pay and display, so the having to pay and get the receipt and putting it in your car, to pay by plate, which is what downtown's gonna be. So you won't need to do the receipt anymore, as long as you remember your plate, you'll be good to go. And we'll even be handing out little business cards that'll have the QR code on one side and another place on the other side where you can write your license plate. So you can keep it on you, it's easy to remember in case, you know, you don't know. So we're gonna try and put out some tools as well, so.
How much does it cost?
Same as the rest of the city, it's $1.50 an hour.
So with the parking structures being a free outlet, probably safe to assume that might drive more traffic to the parking structure.
Correct.
Will there be increased enforcement or security type activities to make sure those are safe places to park?
So enforcement will definitely be changing their behavior in order to sort of see how those are going. Right now, we do have security that's downtown. The idea, hopefully, and really what we took out of the survey, which we had around, I wanna say just under 900 people respond, which was pretty fantastic. What we learned from the survey is people want to continue to see what is already happening, but at an increased level. So security and cleanliness were the top 2 things, what everybody wants to see downtown. So hopefully with this change, because the funds will remain in the downtown, that we will be able to enhance those as well. So enhance, you know, instead of having the security that we have, maybe, you know, we can double what we have. And the same with the clean team, you know, maybe we can double what we have. So those are gonna be sort of those first two things that we'll focus on for exactly the reasons that you're saying. You know, we know there's gonna be more activity, but at the end of the day, you know, the first year is really that wait and see what people do. You know, we factored in what we think the revenues will be, we factored in what we think the leakage rate is gonna be, and we're very conservative in that, but we just kind of have to see how,
See what happens.
see what people do. I mean, hopefully people move to the parkades, and we're also, I guess the other thing I'll point out is we are also partnering with Chariots on some marketing materials so that people know there's other options. If you don't wanna pay, you don't wanna park in the parking structure, Chariots has options, Chariots has discounts for employers that are buying, you know, bulk permits for their employees, and we're gonna be including that in the materials that we hand out as well. So it's not just about, hey, park downtown for Salem, but there's some other options out there. All of this to say, if you come downtown, you're gonna have to start paying or parking in a parking structure. But we have a project website, it's www.beepbeepsalem.com. So it's pretty easy to remember, we'll be updating it with stuff along the way, and if you wanna continue getting information, you can sign up there, you'll be on a list. If you have questions, there's an email there, or you can just contact me as well. And that's kind of one of the big changes though that you guys are gonna start to see downtown. It's not a North Gateway thing, but
No.
we're making the plug to everybody right now anyways, because it's happening.
Any questions, comments?
I'm a little curious to know, and this, I mean, if you don't have the answer, that's fine, because it's not that important, but where did the name for the parking app come from?
That is a great question. Honestly, I don't think anyone has asked us that. I will tell you, we probably spent 4 months getting options. We have a great team. We have a parking consultant team who brought on a marketing public relations team with them, because that is not sort of the thing that we do. And we wanted to make sure we were getting some really creative minds. And they probably gave us a list of over 150 options. We worked through them all, and in all honesty, none of them seemed to click. It was too governmental, or too bureaucratic. We wanted something fun, or it didn't feel fun. I mean, parking and paying for parking is not the most exciting thing. So what can we come up with? Salem is a community that we have found in our social media that really does love dogs. Our marketing person here said every time we do a social media post with dogs, it is the most liked posts that we ever get. And so it kind of started from there, and our former downtown manager / assistant director, who's been kind of on point for the project, just was like, what about something simple like Beep Beep Salem with a cute dog? And it kind of went from there, that we sort of were like, well, what if it's a really cute car, like a little bug, and they're driving it around? And then we started thinking about 7-8 years ago, we changed a lot of the wayfinding in downtown Salem. And at that point in time, we still had an EID, and they were doing, the First Friday events and things like that. And we had a graphic designer that was doing these really cute, colorful, kind of not cartoonish, but very fun graphics. And so we reached out to her and we're like, what do you think? And so we actually created the icon itself, tying to the colors that we used in all of those materials. So there's still a tie-in to actually the wayfinding that we have downtown. But it was kind of one of those fluky things. We're like, everyone loves Parking Kitty in Portland. So it's like, we want something fun like that. And it just sort of lended itself to why not Beep Beep Salem and a dog. And then every meeting we had after that, we kind of brought it up and everyone was like, huh. And then they're like, it kind of works. So we just stumbled upon it. I wish I could say there was this amazing way that it happened, but it kind of was like, we don't like anything that we're seeing. And so lo and behold, just go with the cute dog at the end of the day.
I have to ask a question about parking downtown as it relates to the state of Oregon.
Sure.
And is the state of Oregon back to full use and occupancy of offices? Are they doing a split?
I think they do have a lot of their employees that still do hybrid.
Okay, so then the next question is, as Salem continues to develop, I know that my son is the real estate listing agent for the block that had Payless, the dollar store, and he also has Salem Town Center for the new owners. And there's some pretty good sized potential tenants or users for those locations. They're going to require a lot of employees, and then because of the type of businesses, they're going to have a lot of customers. So the question is, has there been any conversation between City of Salem parking needs and State of Oregon because of the various lots and parking facilities that they have? to be able to work out some kind of a availability where employer or an individual could get a monthly parking pass in one of the state lots.
So at this point, there's always conversations between the city and the state on various things. So when it comes specific to parking, I am not aware that there's been a recent conversation tied to specifically what you're saying. However, what I will say is I think there's, you know, when we're speaking of downtown, there's a lot of development that's happening. And I think there is a very heightened awareness of our parking team, of Kristen, of Dana. As we continue to have this development, we are going to need to be very attuned to what happens with the parking. What do the permits look like? What does our occupancies look like? What do our needs look like? And do we need to start having some of those conversations about, you know, coming up with some more creative ways to build out sort of our parking needs? Right now, we have quite a bit. I mean, Marion Parkade, for instance, only has about 20% of their parking permits sold. So there's a lot of availability still, but that could very well in the next 18 to 24 months shift. So I think it's one of those things where there's an awareness and an open to it. It's just starting to see where do we see that demand moving, and then what are the resources around that so we can have those conversations.
The other piece of the puzzle is moving people from A to B. So you would probably get more use and occupancy of the Marion Parkade if there was some kind of a shuttle that could move people from south to north. As far as, you know, various areas, that might be another component.
It could be.
So there's some variables. I was a property manager and a lease negotiator for the state of Oregon. And the occupancies of the state buildings was shuffled a bit, you know, so as there were programmatic issues that changed whether there was a full occupancy in this specific building, and that would go on for some number of years until a new administration came in, and then, you know, everything changed again, just like, you know, the situation with the new president, where what you had, you know, before January versus what you have now are in a whole variety of conversations are very different. So the suggestion is that there may be some opportunities, depending on what direction the state is going, to supplement the city of Salem's parking needs.
Yeah, I think it's something where we're gonna be continuing to definitely watch, and I think too, you know, a lot of, we're almost built out downtown, you know, growth is going to happen north, we've known that for a long time. And so I think that is where Marion plays in really well, because we do have that capacity. I will say, one of the great things that's going to start happening at Marion Parkade is we are going to be making some substantial improvements to that parking structure, to make it lighter and brighter and, you know, just a much more inviting experience for people to park there. So I think that is going to help add to that as well. But as each of these developments are happening, I think you're 1000% correct, Nate, which is, where are they coming from? What do they need? And what do we have as resources? And are we starting to find that those resources are waning? Because it's not as though we can just put up a new parking structure in the middle of, you know, downtown. What resources are out there from others, and how do we start to partner on those? And you know, I think in some ways we're no different than the private developer that, you know, is in a different part of the city that wants to do something, and they have a very small lot and they have a bigger need, and they've got a neighbor who's got a lot more space, is how do we come into some of those parking agreements? And I think we're just gonna have to look as though we're in that same boat. But it's just kind of, I think this first 18 months is gonna be very telling, both with what people do with the parking, but also just, you know, and I think as Aaron was stating, you know, in the development world, we have projects up and going, but push through, or we're gonna see new stuff, or are things gonna slow down with the various factors that play right now? And so we're kind of in that trying to be as proactive as we can, but also knowing we may have to be a little bit more responsive because the market and everything is just not as predictable as what maybe it historically has been. So I think you're spot on though about, we're just gonna have to keep an eye out for sure and not lose track. So that we don't end up in a situation with a lot of frustrated people and an inability to develop where there's some good opportunities.
Anything else? All right. So we will wait to hear
We'll
on
let
the
you know.
June meeting.
Yeah, we'll do the usual, try to let you know about 2 weeks out, but we're gonna hope not to, and most likely we will see you in August.
Awesome.
Yeah, Jared, I have just a quick update, just kind of open time, but just wanted to once again thank the city and compliment the city on the new City of Salem sign on Portland Road. They've finished the landscaping on that now to go along with the sign, and it's 100% improvement. It looks great. So I know our company, we've got a number of visitors that'll be coming out in the summertime, and it looks great. So thank you for making that improvement. It's been a kind of an eyesore for a long time, and yeah, it looks great. So thank you.
I haven't seen it.
I forwarded it to the board. Oh, the in person?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you'll have to go out there. I know I forwarded the final photos.
yeah, I just haven't drove by.
Curtis did a great job of finishing that up, so. Yeah, when you're out, check it out. It looks great. It's a nice enhancement to the streetscape work that this board had done, which is kind of how we got involved. It's not in the URA. We didn't put money into it, but because it was a continuation of the first phase of streetscape, you know, you guys all provided input, which I think was really great. And now at that point, we didn't think we were gonna do more Portland Road streetscape, different than downtown, but had the same name. Now we'll be able to do more of that, and so it's just gonna make that corridor even better for our businesses, our residents, but also our visitors, just like what Mike was referring to.
Great. Okay, well, meeting adjourned. See everybody soon.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a
See you
good
next
day.
time. Bye.